afternoon, everybody. Welcome to HIZPREZ project. I'm Joe, and we are here today at Boggy Depot. Well, I know we had two attempts try to come up to this site, and both failed. One of them, of course, nature had to have its calling. We had a terrible storm started coming in, and we didn't even have time to get everything set up and do the filming, so we have to leave from the premises because of a storm. Well, 3 weeks after that, we came back, and of course we watched the weather, and it said it's supposed to be clear, a little cool but clear. Well, we got here, and let me tell you, it was really windy and really cold. The wind was up to 35-40 miles an hour, and it dropped down from 42 down to 35 pretty quick. And I tried to do these attempts. Man, it was pretty terrible. But we had to leave again because I had my equipment set up, and of course got the camera going, and the wind decided to kick in and nearly knocked my camera off, so I saved it before it busted to the ground. So, but we're here, a third attempt, so we're going to try this again. And I know we may not do it long, try to get by, and we've got other things to do this afternoon, but we're going to try to get through this history of Boggy Depot, and it's a great history here. And of course the weather's it's really nice today, really pretty, kind of a little chilly, not too bad, and the wind ain't strong like it was the last time, so maybe we can get by today. So everybody knows, some knows and some don't know about Boggy Depot. Boggy Depot was a major source within the Choctaw Nation. Of course, Chickasaws founded the site actually in 1837. Right after the Treaty of Dokesville, they moved up in this area and they created their own establishment here in 1837. So, but this was within the Choctaw Nation as far in that time. So Choctaws and Chickasaws collaborate in this area, and of course many Chickasaws and many Choctaws have moved here in this site. So this was pretty much the Choctaw Nation at one time. And of course, in 1849, Boggy Depot was founded, and established a post office here. Of course, here in Boggy Depot, many roads started going through here, such as the Texas Road. I think pretty much is the main road from Kansas all the way down to Texas. And it passed through this area, such as also the Boggy Depot and the let me get this straight, the Boggy Depot and Fort Smith. There we go. I was gonna say Fort Towson, but Fort Smith. So this was a major road too, such as the Butterfield stage coach that came through here. I know we talked about that, about the Butterfield. So the stage route came through as well. There's still some of depressions of this road that you can still see it today, and I'll show you some of this depression on this road, and it was the main traffic here in Boggy Depot. And of course a lot of prominent Choctaws, a lot of prominent settlers, all of them come in this area and use these roads to come to Boggy Depot. Right now where I'm standing at, it used to be a church in the Masonic Lodge right here, and this is possibly where Chief Allen Wright possibly preached in this area. Of course on my right, just right over here, would have been the schoolhouse. I don't know what year it was erected in that time, but there's a schoolhouse here, and right in front of me is the old church. And of course beyond this church would have been two houses, the two prominent people that lived in this area. One of them is Chief Allen Wright, and next one would have been I think it's Cyrus Byington's son. No, I take that back. It's John Kingsbury. I take that back. I'm sorry. John Kingsbury. So John Kingsbury's home site is just beyond here, and Chief Allen Wright. There was other prominent people that lived here, but these were the major ones in this area. If you see the map of the Boggy Depot, you will see how the town was starting to grow And of course, in 1872, the railroad east from here, possibly about 10 miles, setting from here, would have been the MKT, which is Missouri's, Kansas, and Texas Railroad, that started going across from Toka, Tushka, all the way down to Durant and into Texas. So, and as the people here that lived in Boggy Depot started moving eastward, where the major source in the business started growing, and it left Boggy Depot in a ruins. There's still a few people at that time still lived in this area, still coming in, but it wasn't as big like it was. So they go where, you know, when business starts, that's where everybody goes. So, but Chief Allen Wright, of course, John Kingsbury, all stayed in this area. And of course, John Kingsbury is the son of Cyrus Kingsbury, who also was a missionary for the Choctaws around Eagletown. And they, of course, he moved up this way, and he's buried at the Boggy Depot Cemetery. We'll go through all that later, but I'm going to show you some little sites here, and let's do a little small tour on Boggy Depot. And again, like I said, I wasn't going to be too long, but I want to try to get much as I can through this history, and then we can go to the cemetery, show you some of the Choctaw prominents that used to live here and was working around this area at one time too. So let's get going, and I'll show you some of these historical sites. Let's do that. So beyond, right in the horizon, just right up there, you'll see the depressions in this area where my finger's at. That's where the Butterfield stage route went towards Nails Crossing, and then coming this way, of course, to Boggy Depot. And there's the monument right over there. So that was the road. And you see another depression right here as well. This was another major source road too. I was talking to a gentleman earlier, and of course, I was confirmed that this was one of the main highways right here. There was the road they used to come to Depot. He said he was not sure what road, but he thinks this was like the main, I guess like the main street of Boggy Depot. This is a depression of the wagon road. And right here to my left is the side of the schoolhouse. And if you look right here, you can still see the foundation where the schoolhouse once stood. Of course, a gentleman was telling me they believe they have pictures, but they have to look for them. And he said, you know, for me, I can look at them. If whenever he gets it, I would like to look at some of this old schoolhouse. It standed till like the early 1900s, and it fell apart. But there's still remnants of the schoolhouse foundation. That's another thing we don't have, as well as some kind of pictures of this whole Boggy Depot town site. And that'd be kind of great to see what it would look like. Only pictures we have is of John Kingsbury's home site and Chief Allen Wright, which we'll get to that later. So right here, where I was standing earlier, this is where the side of the church and the Masonic Lodge. Again, there's another foundation right here. And also this was a meeting place as well. So you can see right here all the foundations still in this area. And there's the monument. Talks about the lodge hall, the Masonic hall. It says Joseph Samuel Murrow, Grand Master in 1877 and 1878. Grand Secretary 1880 to 1909. He was the Grand High Priest. I know my fellow colleague, and I'll call him my brother, Kenny Seibert. He's in the Masonic Lodge, so he may know all about this stuff too. Maybe he knows the record of this area. So let's go over here to the site of John Kingsbury's home site. So now we are here at the site of John Kingsbury. He is the son of Cyrus Kingsbury, and it was another prominent to help with the Choctaws and the Chickasaws. And of course, you can still see parts of the pier foundation of the home was this little rock right here, this little stone here. And right now, we possibly would have been in his side of his home. So you can still see some of these stones here. And I imagine there's probably still more underneath this ground. But this is possibly where his home site would be at. Those bodark trees, look at those bodark. One of the toughest trees. And beyond back here, see this little cedar trees that's kind of leaning right in that area. Right in there, there's another road that goes exactly towards the northeast, going towards Atoka. That would have been the Butterfield. Of course, they said during the time someone plowed it and that there was a preserved wagon ruts in that area, but according to the one of the gentlemen here was telling me that someone plowed it and it disturbed the preserved side of the wagon ruts. So, so anyway, we cannot see that. But yeah, look at this bodark. This is pretty interesting. I wonder how old it is. I would say, give or take, 130, 140 years old maybe. What's your take on that? Tell me how old you think this bodark tree is. All right, let's go off to, before we go, talking about the Butterfield. And there's the Butterfield monument there. And you see that little depression there also. That's also another major road too as well. And you see how that depression kind of goes down in this area right here. That's also the road connecting to this road right here. So like I say, this was like the main street where we're at right now. This would have been the town of Boggy Depot. And of course, I don't know if I mentioned, there was a Choctaw and Chickasaw Observer, which is the newspaper. So in that time, they had their own newspaper. So yeah, like I said, this was a major town in that time. All right, so let's go look at Chief Allen Wright's home site. Okay, so now we're here at the original home site of Allen Wright. Of course, right here you see the description about Chief Allen Wright. And if you would like to, I'm going to zoom out just a bit and you can read about Chief Allen Wright. And of course, if you like to, you can pause it and just read the whole description about Chief Allen Wright. And this would have been his children's. And if you have any family of, or you're a descendant of Allen Wright, this possibly may be your family right here. At the bottom, you will see that's what his home would have looked like. And it said it's standing around till the 1940s or 50s, early 50s, and it, of course, engulfed up in flames. Seems like every home, schools, or churches is always engulfed up in flames back in the days, but you know, things happen. It'd be great if they did restore the home, but maybe the funding wasn't as much like it is today. But well, we know we got that little sign there showing that that's where his home used to be at. And the trees possibly were marked where his home stood right here on this side. It was a two-story home with two-sided chimneys and a cooking area in the back. So that's as far as I know and believe. And after Allen Wright passed on, his family took over until later on, like I said, in probably around 1950s or so, until the house caught on fire. So, but this is the Chief Allen Wright's home. This is Boggy Depot. You're looking at right here, downtown. But one last thing before we go to the cemetery. This right over here. Oh, I want to say one thing. I'm glad that the Chickasaws are also restoring this area and preserving this area as well. Like I said, we always collaborate with the Chickasaws as well as they collaborate with us. So this area was possibly the Confederates camp station at. Also were a lot of what they say the Negro camp state of the Confederate camped out in this area, also as well as Choctaws and Chickasaw Regiment camped out in this area. But no skirmishes, no civil wars or anything happened at Boggy Depot. It was attempted to, but never happened. This was a major supply in that time in the Civil War. So this is that's why they call it the depot, because this was the supply source here at Boggy Depot for the Civil War for our Confederates. So all right, let's head off to the cemetery, and you'll see some of the Choctaw prominence that I was talking about all the early years that all lived in this area. We'll see the grave of John Kingsbury, his dad Cyrus, of course Chief Allen Wright, and of course we'll see one of the David Folsom, Colonel David Folsom's brother, Israel Folsom. He's buried here. He was one of the circuit Presbyterian ministers at that time, and he's buried over here as well. And so let's go over there to the Boggy Depot Cemetery, and we'll go from there. All right. We are here at the old Boggy Depot Cemetery, and as you see in front of you, these old cedar tree. Usually these cedar trees marks the spot of a burial or a gravesite. But as you can see here, these cedar trees are pretty old. I don't know, probably over 130, 150 years old. But it always marks the spot of a burial or a gravesite. And that was their, I guess, it's not only a Choctaw tradition, but it is a tradition for many that shows back in the days. Some of them can't even afford a tombstone, or some just use sandstone as their marking spot, or they plant these cedar trees by the gravesite. So let's start with this fella right here. Some you may not know, some may you know, I don't know. But we look right here, Forbes LaFleur. Forbes LaFleur, born in 1810. He died in August 6, 1881. Age 71 years. So, yea, that thou I shalt walk through the valley of shadow of death. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. So, Forbes LaFleur. Again, if anybody doesn't know about Forbes LaFleur, nobody probably does, but he is the younger brother of Greenwood LaFleur. A little story of Greenwood LaFleur. Greenwood LaFleur, of course, he is buried in near his home at Malmancion, excuse me, Malmancion. And Malmancion, it's in Mississippi. And this is where Greenwood LaFleur is buried at. A lot of them never talks about Greenwood LaFleur, especially the Choctaws. Never talked or spoken about Greenwood LaFleur as well. They heard of him, they know the story, they know the history, but not intentionally don't want to talk about Greenwood LaFleur. If you have any LaFleur families, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to step on the family's deal, but with this is history and how it goes. That what he did to the Choctaws was pretty bad. He pretty much stabbed them in the back. The Choctaws trusted him, and the only one that really didn't trusted him was trying to warn the Choctaws was Chief Mashulatubby. Of course, Chief Mashulatubby, he stepped down as chief because he knows what's going on, and he knows that Greenwood LaFleur will sign the treaty for us to be removed from our homelands of Mississippi to here to the new homelands. So Greenwood LaFleur, of course, went to DC, so I want to make this short as possible. So he went to DC and tried to negotiate with Andrew Jackson for us not to be removed. But when he came back, things, I don't know what things was said in Washington, D.C., but as he came back, the Choctaws thought, you know, oh, we got a good deal. We're going to sit here. We're going to stay at home. We're not going to be moved. This guy knows what he's talking about. He was a little young. He was in his 30s, you know. So, and he's educated. And so as he came back, yeah, he said, we'll be moving. And that's what the Choctaws didn't want to hear. So I'm kind of paraphrasing here and there. So that's what happened. And the Choctaws kind of like, you know, other chiefs was kind of like upset, like, what would you just do, you know? And today's term will be like, hey, did you just stab us in the back, you know? Are we gonna be removed? And, you know, Greenwood would be saying, yeah, well, I'll try to do my best, you know, but things didn't work out, so I guess we just have to be removed. Like, he wasn't trying, you know. So, like, you know, how Mashulatabi, Apukshinabee, and of course Pushmataha, all three chiefs is trying to go up to Washington, D.C. to negotiate for not removing our people from our homelands of Mississippi. But of course, the two chiefs passed on. The only one that was still surviving was Mashulatabi. So, of course, again, as he came back home, things ain't go as planned. So he knew Greenwood LaFleur was going to stab us in the back. And it was a great warning, and we should all took that, but we thought, you know, Greenwood LaFleur is going to help us, but he didn't. It made it worse. So he thought it'd be a better deal for us to be removed instead of being home. And of course, where's Greenwood LaFleur at today? His brother is buried right here, and his older brother stayed back. And he stayed here in Boggy Depot. Of course, he was born near Fort Towson. I mean, not Fort Towson, but he lived in near Fort Towson, made his home there near his cousin, Thomas LaFleur. But Forbes later on moved up here, and his brother stayed back in Mississippi and built his, man, a real nice mansion. If you ever see his mansion, it's pretty nice. They call it Mount Massillon. I forgot what it's in term in French. So, yeah, Greenwood LaFleur is not a good guy. He was like our Andrew Jackson, you know, so he didn't help any matter. So so there's more stories to that, but I'm gonna keep it short, so now you know. So anyway, Forbes LaFleur, of course, the brother of Greenwood. Of course, he had another brother. He was a chief named Bessel LaFleur. That's a Greenwood other brother. He's buried up by Goodland near Hugo, Oklahoma. So Forbes, he is here. And of course, he had a son, served in the war, called Captain Charles LaFleur, which is buried up near Limestone Gap between Stringtown and Kiowa. So there's Forbes LaFleur. So let's go on to the next one. So here we are at the gravesite of Israel Folsom. There's some history about Israel Folsom. Well, let's make it this way. Reverend Israel Folsom. I know it's kind of windy. I don't know if y'all hear the wind, and maybe y'all can hear me talking. But again, Israel Folsom is the younger brother of Colonel David Folsom. Of course, Israel Folsom, he was a minister of a Presbyterian, and, well, let's back that up. Cumberland Presbyterian minister who preached far and beyond throughout the Chickasaw and the Choctaw Nation. Of course, he was born in 1802 and died in 1870. So Israel, of course, like all other Choctaws, came along the Trail of Tears, but he became a missionary circuit minister all around the Choctaw Nation and a few of the Chickasaw Nation, and preached the gospel. Also, Israel preached at a church near Durant, Oklahoma called Philadelphia Church. It was an old Presbyterian church, and he preached there. He lived in Blue County at the time before his death, and he moved back up here, and of course he's buried here. So David Folsom, of course, his brother, was the chief in the Mississippi, in the district near Pigeon Roost, and of course this is possibly where all the Folsom was, him and his brothers and so forth. Israel is the son of Nathaniel Folsom, and of course Nathaniel came along the Trail of Tears, and he is buried somewhere near Eagletown. We don't know at, in an unmarked grave. So Israel resided here with his family, of course with his wife here, and with his kids. So here's your little history of Israel Folsom. And of course, Levika Nell is Israel's wife, and you see right there, and she is the daughter of Joel H. Nell, which is David Folsom's brother-in-law. Of course, I believe that's his daughter, I will say. So Levika Nell is daughter of Joel H. Nell, who fought in the War of 1812 alongside with David Folsom. So there you go. There's a little history all right in here. So there's Folsoms here. There's some Wrights, and yeah. So also, Israel Folsom, of course, knew of Forbes LaFleur, so they knew each other as well. Because yeah, Israel probably would tell me about Ringwood too if he was alive. All right, let's go to our next gravesite, a prominent Choctaw site, and then of course we'll talk about others. So let's go from there. So again, we was at the home site of John Kingsbury, and here is John P. Kingsbury's gravesite. He died, of course, in the year of 1867 at the age of 46 years old, and of course he is the son of Cyrus Kingsbury, which he lays right beside his father, right here. So that would be Cyrus Kingsbury, Doctor of Divinity, died of June 27th, 1870, at the age of 83 years. I believe he was from Massachusetts. I couldn't remember pinpointed. I believe he came from Massachusetts and came to Mississippi as a missionary to the Choctaws, and of course brought along with his son, and of course it came along through the removal of the Trail of Tears with the Choctaws. And of course he preached around Eagletown, all around that area, Dokesville, and then moving up this way to Boggy Depot with the other Choctaws, and to be resided here. All right, so let's go to our next one, which would be this fella right here. If anybody want to know who named Oklahoma or coined the name Oklahoma, it would be this gentleman right here. Close right here. That would be Reverend Allen Wright. Of course, he was born in Mississippi in November of 1826, and he died right here in Boggy Depot in year 1885, December 2nd, at the age of 59 years old. So he named and coined the word Oklahoma, meaning red people, or all the native that comes together as one. So he calls it the state Oklahoma. So Okla, of course, meaning a lot of us, a lot of people, and the Homa is standing red in Choctaw language. So in the year of 1866, after the Civil War, he went to delegate with the others to go up and to delegate to make the new name, instead of the Indian Territory, to name it Oklahoma. So, but Oklahoma didn't reside as a name of the state until the year of 1907 in November. So yeah, he passed on even before Oklahoma became a state in 1907, but in honor of him, they named the state of Oklahoma. So this is Allen Wright. Allen Wright also was called Kelihote. Was the Choctaw boy who came along to Mississippi. His parents died along the Trail of Tears, and a white man came along named Alfred Wright, took this boy and put it under his wings and raised him up. And then of course he gave him Allen Wright after his name and after his last name. So Allen Wright is how he got the name, after his I guess you could say his adopted father of Alfred Wright and Merle Wright, who was the founder of Wheelock near Millerton, Oklahoma. So this is Mr. Reverend Allen Wright, Chief Reverend Allen Wright. So there you go, your history of Mr. Allen Wright. So, all right, well, I hope you enjoy this little segment of Boggy Depot and this little historical site. Oh man, I'm trying to get across that little leverage there. Whew, that's pretty tough. But again, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, we'll be doing other sites sometimes as well. Our little virtual tour on our HIZPREZ project. So keep inside, keep in lookout and watch what we're going to do. This is what we do, and just is preserve the site and kind of learn our Choctaw history as well, along with the Oklahoman history. But we're collaborating together. So this is our Choctaw history to learn and keep it preserved. So again, it's kind of getting a little cool and a little windy again. So, but I want to head out. So I got other things to do. So like as we say in Choctaw, Chupisalachiki and Yucko. Thank you, and we'll see you soon, or we shall see you on the next.